You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Yes, Tuesday. In the Tuesday, live from the Big Apple. Well, not quite. And thank God for it, to be honest. I'm so happy to be with you on a 7 o'clock mark of the day again in the new year. And it's going to be a good one tonight because I have not only a cool second half guest that we haven't spoken to in a little while. It's always good to check in with Jason Bermas. He'll pop in for about 25 minutes, around 8:15 or so. But from now until then, I have a number of news stories and also just topics that I want to open up for calls. And that's good. You know why it's good? Because calls are a way for people to not lurk. And in the new year, I want to hear calls from people who have never called in before. OG callers, you dial away. I love hearing from you. But I want to hear people I've never heard from ever. Okay, first time. In fact, I'm going to get into the Discord as well. I'm going to start making sure that I take Discord calls. And I have the domestic calls line there, the international line there, and then also a special on-topic line, which is something that you have for the topic. And then open lines we just take from. I just want to know if you're domestic or international. I guess Canada is international. I get for now. For now, you never know. We're adding so many states, you just don't know. But for everybody else, if you're watching this after the fact, here's a great way for you to call in. Either email me, but before you email me, leave a like and a comment, and there you have it. That's all I got to say. Like, comment, get nice and chatty in that chat room, and give everybody a nice roll call. Where are you from? Because we reach far and wide, no matter what the internet says. All right, January 6th, 2026, the Epiphany. Little Christmas. And it's time to take down the Christmas tree officially. And that's that. That's the last thing that's up. All of the ornaments are off. All of the garland and ribbons and all of the everything. Everything is down except the Christmas tree. So that'll be down in the basement tomorrow. This is the one time a year that I am jealous of all the people who have real trees. I don't want the pine needles. I don't want the bug infestations. I don't want any risk for any of that stuff. But this time of year, early January, oh boy, am I so jealous of the people who just get to throw their tree to the curb and let the trash men pick it up. Because damn, be so much better than storing it in the basement. But, that'll come and go too. And what else is there? All right, January 6th, day that will live in infamy for Democrats who pretend that, everything is worse than 9/11. And tonight, last night's book club was great, so Flip Side will be back on in order tonight. And I also just wanted to throw a little something out there, too, that I am going to be giving away, starting tonight, not only my second Shart survival kit. So if you send in a super chat, YouTube, Quite Frankly superchat.com, which all of that goes to the show. There's no cut there, but it doesn't matter where you contribute. YouTube, Rumble Rants, Gold Pills, Quite Frankly superchat.com. Not only do you get the Shart survival kit, but I have some Mercury Head dimes that I got a little extra for Christmas, so I can just give a few to everybody. I have a few, and I'm going to give out a cluster of Mercury Head dimes, and I just pulled 3. And I love looking at them, man, because it's just the history and everything else. This one right here 1917. World War I is just wrapping up. This thing was definitely, you understand how many transactions these were a part of, especially this 1917 one. This is 1934. This is what the hell is that? 42? But 1917, this was definitely used to buy a drink at a speakeasy somewhere. No doubt about it. And that's the other thing about stacking silver that I love. You know, it's just like I prefer going for the junk silver, for the old Mercury head dimes and the quarters and stuff. I just like thinking about how it's traveled here over 100 years. And anyway, this cluster of dimes is going to go to somebody. I'll give that away maybe tomorrow night. We'll see. Tomorrow night, along with the Shart survival kit that you can keep in your car just in case you shit your pants. It's the new year. There's going to be a lot of pants shitting opportunities, and I want to make sure that you guys are clean and confident to go out into that wilderness. No, frankly, should go with shit in their pants with no backup plan. I'll probably add something to this tomorrow. And there you have, there's that. So this is funny. You remember we closed out the show yesterday talking about how Zoran Mamdani, he said, I logged my opposition. I had to file my opposition with the, I had to file my opposition with the Trump administration to the Venezuela. That's what it is. The Venezuela situation. He had to know that I'm opposed to this. We're like, great, go ahead. Go ahead. Well, how about you go and fight the human-sized rats in the subway and shut your damn mouth? But I loved how people wanted to follow up on what he meant by he was briefed. It's like briefing. Like, what did the mayor of who briefed the mayor of New York on what? Does he have some kind of a security clearance, or what the hell is going on there? And they followed up on it. They wanted to ask him if he had federal security clearance. And take a listen to this, because I think it's hilarious.
Yet, and has anyone from a federal agency reached out to you or members of your team to begin the vetting to get federal security clearance?
That briefing, yes, was conducted by my team, and the question of federal security clearance is one that's ongoing.
Okay, so as far as federal security clearances, we're looking into that. That process is ongoing, but my team is the one who briefed me about Venezuela. So some intern read him some tweets. That was his briefing. Listen, it's all LARPing. It's all cosplay, especially for this smirking idiot over here with the island of misfit toys always standing behind him. It's just the same cast of characters. One smirking moron, and then there's a bunch of salty morons behind the smirking moron. They know that they have to put the smirk up front, because it's just not attractive to lead with all the salty, mean muggers. And that's what you have here. So an intern read him some tweets. That was his briefing. So from now on, when I wake up in the morning and I make myself a cup of coffee and I jack it up with some keto brains, and I'm getting ready to sift through Citizens Free Press or Godlike Productions, maybe peek in on 4chan and what the hell's going on over there with the retardation. I'm going to call that my morning briefing. I was briefed this morning. I got my 4chan brief every morning. And then I went into the Discord and I was briefed by my team over there too. That's what I'll be saying from now on. And I suggest that you guys say it as well. Where do you get your morning briefings? Okay, for more stupid news, this is actually a little bit morbid, but it's one of the things I want to just open up with you guys before we get into a little bit more global stuff. And you remember the Sarko euthanasia pod that we were talking about last year? Some guy that created a pod, I don't know, in Switzerland. Where is this? Is it the Netherlands? I don't know where the hell it was, but they put this euthanasia pod into the woods somewhere and just gassed people. And the doctor that was behind this pod, about 2 weeks ago, he was showing off a new invention of his. It's called a suicide collar. and it kills patients by applying pressure to the neck. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this for you from the Daily Mail, especially down here. It's called the Kairos collar that Dr. Nietzsche is live demonstrating to his observant guests, but on a plastic mannequin with silver hair, of course. It works by putting pressure against the carotid arteries and the baroreceptors in the neck, cutting off blood flow to the brain and causing the wearer to lose consciousness before dying. In a post on X, Dr. Nietzsche could hardly conceal his excitement for the developing technology. So, as sad and as morbid as this is, there's something about it that I'm sorry to say is actually hilarious to me. Sad and morbid come first, and then it's just, I don't know. It's almost like this thing in particular with the suicide collar. It's almost like the clock boy kid from Texas or whatever. You remember that Muslim kid that got in trouble at school because he disassembled a clock? He deconstructed a clock, didn't make one, didn't go out buy spare parts and make one. He deconstructed a digital clock, and then he kind of rewired it together inside of a suitcase, brought it to school. It looked like a bomb. Everybody who looks at it would say, oh shit, that's a suitcase bomb. But of course, he got in trouble at school. I think he got suspended or something like that. And the Obama administration got involved because it was a perfect opportunity to virtue signal about how we should not be discouraging ingenuity and creativity of young inventors, especially young non-white inventors. And I remember laughing about it because they had this kid who go to the White House and shit. And all the while, it's just I had to go and grab it after I saw this suicide necklace. This was the clock the kid brought to school. Anybody would have been pulled aside by the police would be called. You guys remember this? This was like this is well over, it must be like 12 years ago now. I remember laughing about it because they had this kid go to the White House, and it was just a digital clock that he disassembled and reconnected with in some sort of a suitcase. And I maybe I can go back and find some of those episodes. I'll just find when it was breaking and then scan through some old episodes. I was like, this is not an innovation. It's something that was once a nicely assembled clock that is now rearranged to look like a suitcase bomb. Yeah, I miss things like this being the big news of the day. This was the big news of the day. Now we get stuff like Bud Light and the transvestite and all that stuff, and I don't know, this was a lot more funny. It was frustrating back then, too, because, of course, politics was at play. But anyway, that's what I feel about people who, are always coming up with new ways to euthanize somebody in some sort of a legal, because, of course, this is all about, it's illegal. We're taking steps and leaps and bounds into the future. And it's all about just like, how can we help people just exit? How can we help people just get out? How can we encourage people to just give up? Because we know, just like what we heard about with Safe and Rare and Tragic, with the abortion discussion back in the 90s, we know now that is not what it is here too. That the whole idea of death tourism and euthanasia and making that a legal reality has gone so far beyond what is terminal, so far beyond into what is either unaffordable or just or inconvenient or anxious. It's just a way to quit. So when I think about this guy who's excited to talk about his new technology, I'm like, what kind of nonsense, Dr. Philip Nietzsche, his new invention. Like, we've been executing people for as long as there have been people, hanging, stoning, drowning, whatever the hell it is. To think that this guy is like, I'm going to create a really luxurious gas chamber and people can just pay me to kill them in the woods instead of them just, nodding off in a garage with the car running or something there's no way to reinvent this terrible, terrible morbid wheel here. But of course, this is stuff that governments are getting behind. And now more and more more states over here in the U.S. are getting behind them as well. It's just unfortunately that's just where we are. But you got to listen to this. What makes Kairos Collar such a game changer? That's the quote game changer according to his website. It's a game changer. I did this. Quote, you can build your own collar. You can build your own collar. And the act of euthanasia or self-euthanasia is not a crime. Dr. Nietzsche told his guests on his website, according to the Herald Sun, which attended the workshop that he put together in Amersfoort. Quote, it will work like an airbag in the car. When you press a button, bang, you faint and die. In this particular session, the Kairos Collar is designed with a particularly cheerful color palette. Considering its purpose, fit a rainbow-colored rim and bright orange tubes. Oh, how quaint. The contraption provides a peaceful, fast, reliable passing. It's cheap and simple to make and is entirely lawful, according to Exit International. That's the name of the company, Exit International. They literally want to just go out. Just leave. Let me help you get out of here. In fact, there's a migrant that's ready to take your place, and they have a couple more years of not working. That's the other thing. The migrants are coming over here and working, but most of them are on welfare. It's hilarious. They say, well, we need the migrants. They have to be able to be bigger than the people that they're going to provide all of their retirement for. So, yeah, well, the people who are retiring are providing for the migrants. So how the hell is that going to work? I'm getting off track. But this is innovation here, and that's what made me laugh about this. As morbid as it is, this is what made me laugh. His latest innovation, they said, it's a collar that gently strangles you to death. Maybe not gently. He said it's like an airbag. Pow. Pow, and you're gone. That's not an innovation. First of all, it's just a blood pressure machine. It's just a blood pressure machine that you put around your neck instead of your arm, okay? He could hardly conceal his excitement for developing the technology. It's a blood pressure machine. So I just had to put that out there. Because it made absolutely no sense to me. And now I have something else that actually is kind of related to that too. And that is Scott Adams. Now, Scott Adams, he's essentially told everybody that he's terminal and he doesn't have much time left. I think it started off as prostate or something like that. It's been a really uncomfortable and sad thing to watch. No matter, and this is just what it always comes down to. We get into these, because we all exist in this media space now, and it's become so much of a social space than it is just a media space where we have our social lives and we tap into media through television, and it's just it gets as personal as the host can make it. Johnny Carson or something like that, but there was no actual interaction with it. There's no comment sections for all those years. Social life was the real world. You go out there and you have to deal with people who are on the same page, not on the same page, and you're always balancing out and have reminders of what's most important, your relationships and your reputation and what it's, what you need to do to get on with life in your town, your city, your block, whatever the hell it is, your school, and to just be diplomatic in some way while saving face and not losing your integrity by just letting people walk all over you, of course. So it's a balancing act that we all had to learn. Doesn't happen. It's a lot easier to get lost into the fray of the metaverse. Oasis, if you're reading Ready Player One with us, it's very easy to get lost into the fray. And people like Scott Adams, they, or me, it's just you're either, loved or condemned. And sometimes things are just too personal because all the personal interactions we're having are just lacking elsewhere, just in quantity and quality. It's lacking for me too. The whole world around us has changed. I wish we had all the same people coming around we did 15 years ago. It's just everything's different. And you just think about this, that, eventually we're all going to meet an end, hopefully peaceful, not one that's carried through illness or something like that. And it's just it's something to think about. But here's where he is. And he told everybody that he is going to be he's made a decision to convert to Christianity. And it's gotten a lot of people thinking about this. A lot of people thinking about this, about what it all means and whether or not it counts. Now, I'm definitely not an authority on it. I have some thoughts, but I want to bring it up with you guys. Now, to just start off this whole segment, I wanted to show you this woman, Lily Phillips. That's the woman who banged like 1,200 guys in half a day. Well, apparently she said we got a video of her getting dunked underwater somewhere. It's a baptism. Somebody was willing to baptize her. And she said, I feel a lot closer to God now. And of course, the comment sections are just exactly what you thought they would be, because, we see this all the time. We see this all the time now. And I don't know where it goes. How much of it, you can't really judge a person's heart, especially somebody that is just always, living out there in the public, especially when their public life had so much to do with having their clothes off and whatever. In her case, just banging anybody that had a heartbeat. So what does that all mean? I don't know. I don't know. But I got to say, because the world is the way it is, and the media is the way it is, I tend not to believe a lot of things just on face value. Unfortunately, I'm jaded. I'm sure a lot of you guys are jaded as well. And I mean, I wonder about this stuff, because I think that the best way to do anything, if you're going through that kind of a change, would be a genuine act of contrition. Would look like a quiet life, or at least a couple of years of retreating into a life of prayer and penitence, or just not being in public, just being alone with your thoughts, studying, seeking counsel on whatever this new path in life is. Because if you're having that kind of a conversion, I would just like, I would imagine it was going away and just having some quiet time, not just instantly converting all of your content from porn to now this. I'm sure she's going to, become a life coach or something like that. Who am I to judge, though? I'm just saying I've been jaded, okay? Because if I'm going to be playing devil's advocate, you would think that the documenting of a true conversion of that magnitude would be an inspiration to people, but it just doesn't come off that way. Just doesn't come off that way. So what are your thoughts on her? But to take it a step further, like I said, Scott Adams, this is a more imminent matter of life and death. And Scott Adams, who feels like he doesn't have that much time left, has said this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to play it for you. It's only 2 minutes long. Listen to this.
Whenever I talk about the simulation, and especially when I talk about my own impending death, many of my Christian friends and Christian followers say to me, Scott, you still have time. You should convert to Christianity. And I usually just let that sit, because that's not an argument I want to have. I've not been a believer. And but I also have respect for any Christian who goes out of their way to try to convert me. Because how would I believe you believe your own religion if you're not trying to convert me? So I have great respect for people who care enough that they want me to convert, and then go out of their way to try to convince me. So you're going to hear for the first time today that it is my plan to convert. So I still have time, but my understanding is you're never too late. And on top of that, any skepticism I have about reality would certainly be instantly answered if I wake up in heaven. I do believe that the dominant Christian theory is that I would wake up in heaven if I have a good life. Yeah, I don't necessarily have to, just state something in advance. And so, to my Christian friends, yes, it's coming. So you don't need to talk me into it. I am now convinced that the risk reward is completely smart. If it turns out that there's nothing there, I've lost nothing, but I've respected your wishes, and I like doing that. If it turns out there is something there, and the Christian model is the closest to it, I win. So with your permission, I promise you that I will convert.
Okay, so I want to open up the lines on this tonight, and I want to hear from you. Because, there are no atheists in foxholes, they say. But do you take what Scott Adams is saying as someone who has a belief? And how do you there's a lot of people who go to, very rightfully so, a lot of people in the comments were bringing up Pascal's wager. And for those of you who don't know about Pascal's wager, I believe that was the mathematician or somebody from the 18th century, Pascal. I forgot what his first name was, but it's very simple, and it's essentially what Scott Adams is doing. It's from a standpoint of believing and not believing. You have a gamble you can take. It's either you put yourself into the life of Christian, and you accept that and you follow that path, knowing that if this is in fact the truth, you're on the right side, as opposed to the denier, the active denier, who might be bringing on death in hell. Whereas if there is nothing, if there is no God, then there's nothing for both the atheist and the Christian. So it's a wager that's being made. It's a rolling of the dice, and of course that calls into question whether or not you are actually living a life of faith, and does that win you admittance into heaven? Although, what do we know about what rubber stamps you or doesn't? Now, I understand where he's coming from. But what if this is seriously as close as some people get to feeling in the spirit? Religious belief in the supernatural, it's a major intellectual hurdle for people who otherwise have no ill will toward the concept of God, and in many ways envy those who live joyously in their faith, which of course doesn't mean living without sin, without addiction, without any of that stuff. But someone like Scott Adams doesn't. I understand where he's coming from. I understand. It's a very, very. It's a big leap. It's a big leap. But hedging bets, Pascal's wager. What do you guys think? You're casting a bet. It's an intellectual act right there. I don't know if genuine faith can spring from it. I'm sure it can. I guess over time it can. But if, there are people who go to church for years working at making that connection. When I say church, I'm not just talking about the Catholic Church. I'm talking about just going to mass, to service, giving yourself over to it because you want it. And people work at it for years to find that connection. But what if you don't have years left? What if you only have weeks left? What if you only have weeks left? Is the position at that point really, sucks to be you? You should have gotten saved when you had the chance, when you had more time? Because there are comments like that in the comment section that it's too late, or that maybe it's a good first step, but you don't have time to make this into anything other than what do I have to lose scenario, which you have to imagine, what is that? How genuine is that? So call in now. I want to hear from this, and then I'll start bringing in some super chats. I'm sure that's going to have a little bit more of an open path to other topics here tonight, but I want to hear what you guys think, because this is more of an intellectual. You don't have to be a Christian to call in on this. Here's a man who lived in the absence of religious faith, and now he's grasping with the reality of an imminent end. We're all going to die. He sees the end a little bit sooner, coming sooner than others. And obviously, this is an intellectual making a wager. So I want to hear from intellectuals, from secularists, and from people who have faith. And let's do that first. 612, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, it's Kat, 1980.
Hey, Kat, go ahead.
Calling about, hi, how are you? Well, one thing that's been living rent-free in my head is how hard it is to hear you when I'm talking and you're trying to talk over, ask me a question. Last time I called, I couldn't hear you trying to talk. I listened to the playback and I saw you trying to talk, but I couldn't hear you. But I wanted to talk about the porn star that got saved and then Scott Adams. And just a few thoughts is that depending on which part of Christianity the porn star is getting saved into, it seems like from the Protestant perspective, there's a lot of pressure from the church, new converts, to tell their testimony, and it becomes almost like their ministry is to tell their story. And so it is just culturally going to, if that's where she's getting saved into, going to make her feel obligated to make her life and her walk with Christ about her story. If she goes a more Catholic or Orthodox route, it's much quieter, as you well know. There's sacraments and there's things you have to understand, and it's a more internal thing. And at the same time, telling your story like this girl, she's telling her story, why she came to Christ, if she even takes this route. This is all hypothetical. There's some value in that too, because people like this Scott Adams guy, they test the water in Christianity. They consider, they cost benefit analysis. This is how people, when we are considering a path, we look at people who are in various places along that path to assess how it fits into our paradigm and our life and what we're willing to change and how we're willing to see things. So to me, I hope she did get saved. We, of course, as believers all want everybody to be saved. And I thought that was very genuine of Scott Adams to point that out. Like that is an aspect of the faith that if we as believers neglected to espouse to people who are not, we would be derelict in our faith. And so I think that's a very genuine thing of him to say and rather self-reflective. As far as like him coming to belief at the end of his life, how deep that goes into his heart, it's impossible for anyone to know. But I was reminded of the parable of the workers who all earned the same wage at the end of the day, despite how many hours they worked. So the people who worked 8 hours or whatever, they got the same wage as the guy who showed up 30 minutes before clocking out. They all got $10 or whatever it is. And I think that parable kind of speaks to what we're looking at now with someone like Scott Adams. And truthfully, one of the mysteries of God is that we can't fathom how deep his mercy is. And as unjust as that may seem at times, do you want to stand in judgment of God? I don't.
Yeah,
So
I understand. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And, actually, that parable in particular, I remember that being written into the robe. And that was a very big part. And thank you for the call, Kat. I want to get a couple more people on this before the show wastes away. But this was a wonderful first call. And the other thing there too, and I'm not the person to come to start to talk about Bibles, chapters and verse. But when the way I understood, it really clicked, the whole the prodigal son. That really clicked for me a long time ago when it was when I realized that it was more so about when the older, more responsible son or the more responsible son was, getting pissed off that everybody was celebrating the fuck up coming back and having squandered his inheritance, and now all the bulls and the pigs are getting slaughtered. There's going to be a great banquet because the son is back. I realized it was more so of a promise of, hey, this is the celebration, this is the welcome that the fuck up gets. when they come back humble and contrite. Imagine you. Yeah, I can. That would be. That's a nice one. I mean, I don't do a lot of abandoning, but I'm still a fuck up. So I guess we're all the fuck up. I guess that's what it really makes it. We're all the prodigal son. We're the ones to squander the inheritance, and we still get a banquet at the end if there is if there's that moment. I guess Scott Adams could be having his moment right now. Well, I hope so. I hope so for me too. 406. How are you? Go ahead.
Well, Happy New Year, Frank. Well,
Happy New Year.
I just wanted to say that, so as a Catholic, one of the great saints we have is St. John Vianney, and there's a story that somebody came to once about a guy who's a real wretch who lived in the town where he worked and said, well, this guy jumped off a bridge and died or whatever, so he's getting his just desserts in hell. And Vianney said, I don't know. We don't know how he finished. And the person said to St. John Vianney, well, certainly you of all people, holy man, are going to heaven. And he said, I don't know. We'll see how I finish. So I think the moral of the story there is, yeah, at the last minute, who knows what's in the human heart and where it might turn to God and how it might turn to God or even turn away from God, even in the best of us, which I'm not. So I hope Scott Adams has a sincere conversion and ends up in heaven. Frank, Happy New Year. Thanks for everything you do.
Happy New Year to you, and I'm with you. I'm obviously nothing but compassion for Scott Adams, anybody in his position right now, because many of us are going to be in that position one day. Hopefully not some kind of a wasting way, but we're all going to get old and we're going to pass on. And I hope it's peaceful with perspective and the feeling of accomplishment. That's what I wish for all of us. But all of the debate I saw in the comment sections, once again, is one of those things where I'm going to bring this to the audience. I want to see what they're thinking about this. All right, let's take a call from Richard. Go ahead.
This is Erlene.
Oh, well, welcome to the show. How are you? And give Richard my regards.
I will. So I just caught I do apologize. I just turned you on, and I just caught the tail end of Kat's call. And you were talking about the prodigal son. And so I really don't know anything else of what's happening.
Well, we're
on the show.
Well, what we're talking about in particular, because we're going to stay on topic, is we're talking about Scott Adams, essentially a deathbed conversion that he is planning for himself right now, and people are debating on whether or not this is a true conversion, something that is valid, or just Pascal's wager, something that's an intellectual decision that's being made, where if there is no God, if there is no heaven afterwards, then you don't lose anything for converting. And if there is a God, then converting puts you at least in his good graces at the end. And that's what we're talking about in particular. So let's just try to keep focused on that if you can.
Okay. Well, I do apologize. We buried my sister yesterday, and I just wanted to say this. She would have been the older one, and I would have been the prodigal son. And the way I looked at it, and I unfortunately didn't hear anything else about the topic, and I'm sorry.
Well, no. Well, listen, you heard the most important part, because it's one of those things about it. Really, the question is, who do you believe has earned their place? How much time do you have to put in to earn salvation? And what is there to be said about a last minute end of your life conversion? And of course, very sorry to hear about you burying your sister. And I'm going to keep you in my intentions tonight in prayers. But would you say that she was a lot more of the responsible one between the two of you?
Oh, I would say so. Yes.
Okay. She was older.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
She was older.
Are you the second child?
And I guess the way pardon me.
Were you the second child?
I'm the third.
Okay.
So she was the middle. I have an older brother.
Oh, okay.
But the way I look at that scenario, I mean, she actually got more of a blessing with my parents because she was involved. And I think that's one of the things that, the older of the prodigal son, didn't recognize, that he got the benefit of being there.
Yeah.
Now, as far as how long does it take and the salvation. I mean, they talk about the jewels that you gain in heaven. So there's that part of it. But, you know, on the cross, you know, the thief looked over and said, I believe. And Jesus said, I will see you in heaven with me. So I think as long as it happens before, that is, that's the main thing. And the jewels in heaven, I won't have as many.
Hey, listen, you know what? As long as I get in, you can keep the jewels. That's all. That's what I say. I will sleep in a treehouse as long as it's in heaven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what the jewels mean, but as long as I'm there, I really guess it doesn't matter how many jewels I have. And so I guess I don't know what the goal of that is.
Well,
but that's what they say.
I thank you again for the call. I give you on behalf of me and my family our condolences to yours, and thank you so much for such a very poignant point there about the thief at Golgotha. So that's thank you for that. Very, very wonderful point. And you know what? It's not every day that somebody who didn't hear the actual topic ends up making a great point. They usually just kind of spin around aimlessly. So good for you. Good for you. And I will.
Well, can I leave with one more thing?
Please go ahead.
My sister and I had a very strained relationship. We were bitter to each other clear up until the end. And if I could say this, where a lot of times people think that they can say whatever they want to the people that they love. But that, whatever I want to say, spins in that person's head. You should be more cautious about what you say to the people that you love, and less cautious to those that don't matter to you as much, because in the end, we never reconciled. And that's a burden. So,
well,
thanks for letting me share that. And I just wanted to get that at least out there to the people you love. You should be more cautious with your tongue.
Well, you know what you just did right there, and thank you for the call. And again, all the best to you and your family. But you just gave me permission to be even more ruthless with the people that I don't give a shit about. You know, remember what kind of a job I have over here. I try to be pretty diplomatic whenever I can, but damn. All right, let's take a call. 616, Casey, you there?
Yeah, man, what's up?
How are you? Good to have you on.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I think you just posed the question, last caller or the caller before, like, who of us has earned to be saved by Jesus? And I think the overall answer is, like, none of us. None of us have earned it. None of us can even possibly earn it. And that's the grace.
Mm.
So I think Scott Adams, I'm kind of kicking this idea around since watching that. And I wonder if it's almost, well, I know all of us, you know, all the slaves get paid $10 at the end of the day or whatever, like you said earlier too. But if he almost made kind of a more concrete conclusion, because he came to this whole thing by logic. Like, it wasn't just, oh, my parents always raised me in the church and, you know, I've just had faith my whole life and felt this really strong connection and yada, 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 which some people legitimately have. But he was even coming from a place of like, yeah, there's nothing. Like, logically speaking, there's not anything quantifiable. Yet, coming from that place, he's figured it out. He's cracked the code of like, either I've been right my whole life and there's nothing, or I can accept this dude who was peaceful and good by all stretches of recording and end up like waking up in heaven, or I was right. It's a win-win. I think you said that too earlier.
Yeah, but Case, and now, and just to refocus this for everybody too, because of course now the calls that are coming in, they're such great calls and such great substance, but they are all really coming down on the I don't know what can be obtained, what's been promised to us through faith, and the question here is whether or not this intellectual based decision that is being made by Scott Adams triggers is that's, where does the soul come into that? Where you're sitting there and you're doing your mathematic equation. If you say, Eureka, I figured it out. Okay, perhaps you have drawn the best logical conclusion you can about our situation right now, about what you assume as a lifelong agnostic / atheist versus what you are now facing when you are at the edge of oblivion. Well,
it's not oblivion.
Oh, but that's the whole thing.
Him being,
maybe not oblivion, eternity, at the edge of eternity.
Right. Gotcha.
So at that
or not, according to him,
exactly.
Up till now,
So at that point, where does the spirit get involved? Because if you're just going to talk contractually and intellectually, that would be a very smart decision to make. Have a deathbed conversion. But that's where people in the comments were like, well, but did you really drop the token into the machine?
Well, if it's a genuine experience and a genuine conversion that he's having, which I think Kat said, like, nobody can know, like, what's really in his heart. But if it is genuine, like, I think maybe he's a guy who's got nothing left to lose. And he's, like, gone ahead and made that leap and has found nothing but amazing shit he could never have imagined since he went ahead and made that leap with his heart, if it's genuine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. One can hope. And, that's... No, it was very compelling. That's why I wanted to bring it to everybody else. Is there anything else you want to say, Casey?
No, I'm good to go, man. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, thank you for calling in. First of the new year. Wonderful.
Good night, Frank. Have a good one.
Good night. All right, let's take another call. 816 or 617. What did I just see? Go ahead.
Thanks, Frank. Well, just to add, nothing else that hasn't been said already, but when it comes to the intellectual conversion, I think you have to look at it from the standpoint of, does this person have any background in, religion or, being spiritual? And for Scott Adams, seemingly he's been a lifelong agnostic at the very least. So I don't necessarily fault him for making an intellectual wager when it comes to, is there going to be life after death? And if so, then Christianity seems to be the most likely culprit to be the most accurate religion. So I'll just place all my bets on that. So from that standpoint, I think from intellectualism can come mysticism. And I don't know if it's necessarily like a false dichotomy to say someone is purely intellectual and pushes aside all mystical aspects of life, or vice versa. So the only way that anyone's ever going to know is when they meet their maker, right? Like literally when they go 6 feet under, that's the moment that we'll have 100% knowledge of everything. Now, that being said, I do think
caller, he just put himself on hold. I didn't do that. Well, he didn't do that. I'm waiting to see if his number pop back up again. But I don't know what just happened there. That was the music that happened when Frank Zell put us on call to bring Jim in last night for the group call. Oh, here he is again. 817. Go ahead. Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. What was the last thing you heard me say?
I to be honest, I don't remember at this point. I was distracted.
Okay. Well, Scott, I'll just shoot from the hip. Scott has what I would say a very interesting road ahead of him because he's been dealing with suffering. And that's what distinguishes, I would say, all other world religions from Christianity, is that the focal point of suffering isn't necessarily like you do it for the sake of being a glutton for punishment. It's once you get through a hard, difficult challenge, whether or not you're talking physical, mental, or emotional, you will either overcome it or you succumb to it. And when you see figures like Christ or Moses or Stephen or even Paul, heck, all the apostles really go through that little moment of suffering or literally martyrdom, you start to understand that suffering doesn't necessarily have to be bad all the time. So when you go to a funeral, that's why it's not focusing merely on the grieving, but it's also focusing on the triumphs. So in Scott's case, he's taking this wager and he's going, well, when I'm looking at all other religions, I have to change my mind. I have to attain a different type of perspective. You know, in Buddhism, I have to reach this level of intellectualism in order to get to nirvana. And when it comes to Christianity, seemingly, it seems easier, but it's actually not as much easier as one would think, because the journey has to be understanding that you're not going to be perfect. And I think Scott rightly recognizes this. And that's pretty much all I was getting at, was when you look at the thief on the cross next to Jesus saying, please allow me to go with you. And he turns to him and says, today you will truly be with me in paradise. I think that does come with a little bit of a incentive for those who are either agnostic to look at their life and go, well, you know what? I might as well just jump the boat right now. So it doesn't have to be a battle between rationalism and mysticism. It could be an intertwining in both. But I think most people, when they hear the word religion and science, they often kind of scoff at that idea.
Yeah, and in reality, religion and science were really commingled in very complementary ways for a long time. Only now has it been kind of separate from one another, and which is why I think that science really falls short in explaining a lot of the things that we're looking at in the cosmos, especially when people start talking about some of the biggest brainiacs that we produce in the 21st century. When they talk about the origins of the universe and all that other stuff, it always falls very, very short, because you can tell that the biggest battle they have is trying not to use religious terms and supernatural terms when you have to go to even just the most basic points of origin. You know, what came before nothing. It's just one of those things. And again,
well,
yeah.
And like you were saying, if you don't exercise, and you know this yourself from all of your gym experience, if you don't exercise a muscle, it's going to be weaker than other parts of the body. And likewise, when you're talking from a spiritual perspective, if you're not used to spiritual terms, or you have a bad experience in the past with church, maybe you had a family member who was overly zealous and it kind of turned you off to it, or maybe you just were raised agnostic but went through school and you were told a whole bunch of off-putting things about religion, and so you just kind of sidelined the idea, never really open to the idea of spiritualism. But I think with podcasts kind of opening the door, Pandora's box, to what does this mean about DMT? What does this mean about psychoactive drugs and people's experience with seeing these interdimensional beings? And now the biggest talk of them all is the Book of Enoch. I think that's just open Pandora's box for people to start really deep diving into the questions that they've never really asked themselves. And what does it truly mean to live out a life of convicted spiritualism?
Yeah.
And most people they're too rational to get their minds around it. But yeah, that's really about it.
Well, you said a lot in 4 minutes, and I appreciate it. And I thank you so much for rounding this out.
Yeah, of course. Have a good one, Frank.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Happy New Year. Okay. Well, listen, we have a little bit more to do, and I'm actually going to get into your super chats and all that in just a second. So yeah, this is where I want to just take a really quick moment to also just thank what I am so happy to call the people that I'm happy to call my sponsor, my one and only sponsor. So I really am just, it's a high bar to meet these days, but thank you to Keto Brainz for following me into the new year. I just wanted to throw something out there for you guys and gals, because Molly has always come up with wonderful monthly things for you all, and this is one of them. I just wanted to thank them. It's my third year of enhancing my morning coffee with the smoothest brain-busting nootropic creamer in the world. And we have a promo code for January I had to pass along to you. Not only do you get 15% off of your next order. But if you spend more than $100, you get a free bag of Molly's creatine supplement, which supports muscle repair, strength, great pre-workout. I used it a lot in high school and college. Even helps boost memory and other cognitive benefits out there too. The promo code is January. So go to ketobrainz.com, ketobrainz with a Z. The link is in the description of the episode. It's also on quitefrankly.tv in the merch section. ketobrainz.com, use promo code January, 15% off. And if it's over $100, you are going to be in, it's not even in the running for anything. You're getting a free bag of creatine. So that's that. And remember, if you're a monthly sponsor of this show, you get a recurring 20% off code. So contact me if you forgot it, and contact me if you want a free sample, no matter who you are. Frank at quitefrankly.tv. Okay, be back in just a second.
Worried about the Jack on the cell phone. Jack, what's going on today?
Hey, Mike, I want to slap your butt cheeks.
Okay, I heard that from Jack on Saturday.
What is up, guys? Mike Collins here from Wandering Wolf Productions at Easter Island, and you are watching Quite Frankly.
All right, Rora. Here it comes. Oh. Whoa. Here's another one. Oh, Ramadoo.
Wait a second, Rora. What the hell happened to this guy?
It's fake.
Okay. All right. We're back. Let's see what people have to say. 914-200-0269. The line is still open. Jason Bermas is going to be joining us at 8:15. So we have about, 20 minutes or so. Let's see here. Stowstube says, evening, Frank and Frankly's. Great guest tonight. Yes, and he hasn't even gotten here yet. Absolutely. Thank you, Stowstube. Jay Britt says, remember, Dr. Kevorkian, Dr. Death, and his machines. Yeah, I know. And I think Al Pacino played Kevorkian for HBO. It was actually, he did a pretty good job. Yes, I'm going to be taking some more of your calls and more of your super chats. And let's see here, over at pill.net. Let's see, we'll have another one over here. Let's see who's in the running for these silver coins. Remember, these are, the historical value. They're not mint, but I just love these old Mercury head dimes. And even though they are just a dime, the melt value of these is probably around $5 to $6, $5, $6, $7 a piece. So you're not adjusting for what a dime from the early 20th century got you. You're adjusting for what the silver content is. All right, let's see. Over on Pilled, Amethyst Cat says, I love the new intro. Happy Tuesday, Frank. Thanks again to Mike May for the new intro. Thank you again to Lubomir Arzov for allowing us to use bits and pieces of his masterpieces, two masterpieces, In Shadow and Kingdom. Vesper says, a dime for your thoughts, Frank. Vesper is always in the running for some silver. Everybody should be. Sloan TV, thank you so much for the support. Let's get 10,000 gold pills flowing over there tonight. That would be wonderful. We'll be live on the flip side again in a little bit. Corey J says, silver dimes sound good. Yes, a little goes a long way. Thank you, Corey J. And Safety Net says, Tuesday afternoon blessings, Frank and Frankly family. Lots of love, Lynn. Okay, let's take a call. Let's see here. This one is this Mark Kernkey?
Mark? Uh-oh, I'm up.
Mark?
Sorry about that, Frank.
Go ahead, Mark. It's good to hear from you again.
Hey. You're great show. Great program, by the way.
Thank you.
Real quick. Silver, gold, silver, copper. if you're going to think about metals, you need to think about all three, number one. Number two, you need a scale. You need scales. You need measurement systems. You need a measuring system. Why? Because the purpose behind having real wealth, real money, is so that we have no middleman when we're dealing with, economics, when we're dealing amongst ourselves. And that's why everybody needs to know how to manage the currency. That's the most important aspect of what we're dealing with here, with money, with what's coming. Because the other side's obviously going to pull the rug off from the economy, not an if, just a when. But in the process, we won't be caught off guard, and we won't lose everything, provided we keep our heads and understand how real money works, how actual currency works. So just a heads up, I can't stay long because you know what's going to happen in a minute here for me.
I know you're going live, and you're going live across the world on shortwave.
Yeah, I got to get out of here. But again, great program. The other thing here too, real quick, remember guys, having a certain amount of cash in hand in coin and small bill is another thing that you need to do. Just as part of the safety net. Now, there's going to be a transition period, but real money is something we will bring back into service. And here's another idea. I got to go. But America only party. Guys, let's have some fun. We got plenty of time. The technology is in our fingertips. We've got the manpower. People are dissatisfied with the idea we're busy kowtowing to other countries. How about we start at the grassroots end, have some fun in the process, and build an America-only party? We now know who all the people are we got to get rid of, right, to exclude, so it's not hard, right? It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, Mark, and I know you got to go, but in the meantime, you want to talk about grassroots. If you hear of anybody that's giving away free shortwave radio syndication time, let me know, because I sure could use some.
Well, I need to have you up on the program at the 8 to 9 also. We'll do that. We'll do some work together again in a bit.
Okay, I'll talk.
How's that sound?
That sounds great. Have a good night, my friend.
God bless.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Be well. Be well. Definitely want to be heard on the radio. Shortwave, of course. Everything takes money, man. Everything takes money. Okay, let's go. Let's go and take a call we'll get to more super chats as time comes in. Wide open. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, it's Rob Worth.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Did your daughter get my Fox stuff I sent her?
Absolutely. She's very appreciative. Like I said, she got a couple of foxes. She got a few foxes and a few dogs and a few deer. But they all the great thing is that they all came in different forms. Some were small statuettes. Some were ornaments. There was a plush like you sent. Thank you for that so much, and I hope that you have a good new year. So go ahead. What's your thought?
So this is I'm going to put a little spin on what you guys are talking about. And I grew up in a Catholic church, and my daughter, she took her life, and suicide was like kind of a serious sin in a Catholic church. And I never taught my daughter religion because the Catholic Church was so like negative, and just they just tried to scare you into everything. So after she passed, I was like, oh my God, did I do something wrong as a father? I didn't teach my daughter to believe in Jesus or God or whatever. And I struggled with that for quite a few years. So I guess where I'm going with this is like, if somebody wants to open their life to Christianity on their deathbed, I don't think there's a time limit. I don't think we should be so black and white, because what would you say, like, if your parents didn't even raise you to understand God? And that's kind of the path I took, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. And Rob, when you think about somebody who's had time to really process what's happening to them, especially if they are terminally ill and they've been given, a short amount of time, but enough time to really process what's going on. And if they did not really have a life that was that involved being active in one faith or another. And then suddenly you are again standing at the precipice of what is eternity, one way or another. Just me empathizing with that position right now, your entire, all of your attention and all of the value and the worth that you put into things changes, and then all of a sudden now here you are. I mean, there's almost like a necessity for hope at that point. And so to open yourself up to it, be willing, and to be scared and desperate and vulnerable. Sometimes, opening yourself up and being willing to just be vulnerable is a great open door. So again, I'm asking the question that a lot of people are debating in the comment sections, but I tend to be in the camp of up until the last second. I mean, nobody knows the human heart, and who called in before to talk about a bridge jumper and whether or not they got into heaven. He says, I don't know. You just don't know how it went down at the end. You think about all the people who have 7 seconds to really conceive of what's going on from the top of the bridge to the bottom of the bridge, and how many conversions might have happened there. And that's you bring up a great point. I think you just got to empathize with someone like a Scott Adams to really just even get into the emotional mindset, being that vulnerable, and what kind of change that actually opens you up to. And
and who are we to judge him if he believed one way for most of his life, and then all of a sudden, at the last moment, maybe he's felt the Spirit of God. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. But, for us to say what he's doing is wrong, I think that's being judgmental upon itself, so.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I thank you for the input, and I always appreciate you calling, and I'm wishing you nothing but the best in 2026. And
it can't get any worse.
Well, listen, at the very least, where I'll be at 7:00, and you just call in, chat in, whatever the hell, and I'll try my best to be the drumming monkey over here.
You're the man. I appreciate you.
Take care, man.
Okay, you too.
There you go. Okay, here's one that came in. And no, I just lost it. No. Here from Tyler. And Tyler says, Frank, I know I probably should just ignore it, but it never ceases to amaze me how mentally ill so many people are right now. In regards to Venezuela, there are mixed opinions across the board, but liberals in particular are off their rockers. Happy New Year to you. Oh, well, we have 8 minutes or so until we have our buddy Jason swinging by. So I guess this would be a good place to just throw a few thoughts out there as well, because there's a lot to say. There is a lot to say. What I'll say is to start off, first of all, liberals are a non-factor. Patriots, America First people, Jeffersonians, those constitutionalist types, the Ron Paul people, the minarchists, those who just, like stick to principles and say to hell with it, I'll just die on this hill and that's it. I'm more interested to see how those debates rage among people about psyops and election fraud and liberation theories about what's really going on over there. Because a liberal's only ever going to be for or against something because it is just opposite of Donald Trump. They don't care about bombs Obama dropped. They don't care about drone striking of American citizens. They don't care about censorship or Biden's $25 million bounty on Maduro 1 year ago. None of that shit matters. And listen, there are Trump voters who can never and will never criticize a move that Trump makes or a thing that he says. But that is not in any way comparable to the magnitude of how little liberals are able to assess situations independently. No way, shape, or form. At least we argue with each other. That's a sense of, at least we have that level of health in our networks. The question for me, of course, just to go back around to this situation, is election fraud. If this is the doorway to fixing and exposing and fixing, I should say, that, it would be worth it to me, everything that's just happening. Even though we're obviously being given election and drugs as a pacifier to rationalize what otherwise is an obvious, colossal reshaping of the power dynamic in the Western Hemisphere. It's colossal. Like, are we going to get a 99-year lease on some stuff down there like we did with the Panama Canal? I don't know. Greenland is becoming increasingly more legit of a play now, even though we knew it was legit back many months ago when we had Dilly on. I said, okay, Canada, 51st state, is that just trolling? He said, yes. Greenland, is he just trolling? No. Greenland's is on the it's been on the board. Now, I personally, with that, I personally loved the comment from Denmark or whoever the hell made the comment out there about NATO. NATO will defend Greenland, apparently from us. So NATO, which is mostly U.S. funded, is going to defend Greenland from U.S. You know how ironic that is, just because so many NATO countries. You remember we were talking about how ridiculous the Ukraine and Russia narrative was just from the onset. How most NATO countries, especially those really big like Germany, Brussels, all like you're talking about the center of the EU, the financial hub of the EU. How so many of those NATO countries received vast amounts of their energy needs from Russia, the state that they were all in union together to defend themselves from Russia's aggression. Meanwhile, they're sucking from Russia's tits. Just hilarious. Then, of course, that brings us to Nord Stream and all that other stuff. Anyway, I think it's just ironic now that that now Denmark makes, or somebody from Denmark makes a comment about how NATO, which would be nothing without U.S. money, just like for a while there, Europe would be nothing. It would be very hard for people to stay warm in the winter without Russian gas. They're going to defend Greenland from the United States. I love that one. Can we please just get the hell out of this? That is just a perfect time. Evict the UN, get them the hell out of New York, and let's get out of NATO. Let's do this dance. That's what I say. Let's just do this dance finally. I got this from Zero Hedge earlier on today. I guess this is the perfect time as ever to do it. The End of NATO by Molly Schwartz, cross-asset macro strategist at Rabobank. Okay, so they're talking about the Monroe Doctrine, proclaimed by U.S. President James Monroe in 1823, asserted American influence in the Western Hemisphere at a time when the newly independent South American nations were emerging from European colonial rule. While the doctrine, as a tool of policy, warns Europe to keep its hands off, it stops short of declaring that the United States would act as the nanny for these fledgling states. Don's interpretation of the doctrine, however, seems a bit different, though not entirely unique. Indeed, digging a massive trench to split a country in two is a rather explicit form of U.S. intervention, though the recent operation in Venezuela marks the first time we've seen something like this from Washington since the Bush administration. And current administration's rhetoric sounding the operation certainly sets it apart. Secretary of State said this is not a war. There is a war against drug trafficking organizations, not a war against Venezuela. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. We are not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be base of operations for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States. Now, here are some of the things I want just to throw out there real quick when it comes to NATO and everything else. Obviously, last night, when we had Lauren Conlon on doing a court report, she was talking about this. Maduro. Situation appears straightforward, at least for now, proclaiming I'm innocent, I'm not guilty, I'm a decent man when he was in New York. On Monday, the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, was sworn in as acting president following Trump's weekend comments to The Atlantic. Quote, if Rodriguez doesn't do what's right, she is going to pay a very big price. Rodriguez's tone has shifted dramatically since the weekend. Initially condemning Maduro's arrest as barbaric, she now extends an olive branch to Washington, stating, quote, "We invite the U.S. government to work together on a cooperative agenda focused on shared development within the framework of international law and to strengthen lasting community existence or coexistence." But Venezuela's future is still uncertain. Now, as noted by senior energy strategist Joe DeLaura, a vast amount of capital investment would be needed to get Venezuela back to its previous production levels. The minimum time frame for getting output back to where it once was would be 5 to 10 years and billions of dollars, which, again, to say we wanted to get certain foreign interests out of Central and South America, you want to address, this is why I'm saying all I care about is whether or not we're going to be given the goods with election fraud on an international level. On an international level, that's all I care about. Because we have, as it's been reported over the years, at least 2 centuries worth of oil under the slopes of Alaska, and I hear about huge untapped oceans of oil. Which is why the energy crises in the 1970s were largely manufactured, it's been written. But still, see what's going on here. So the elections fraud stuff, what are we going to be given? Where is it going to lead? There's plenty that could be cleaned up right here at home without having to fuel up one Black Hawk helicopter, okay? All of our election issues are state level. You know, the empowered foot soldiers who are working the polls and counting and recounting votes, tabulating in whatever way they see fit, breaking all kinds of chains of custody laws, judges who dismiss legitimate cases of election fraud for lack of merit, even though they has all the merit in the world. If Venezuela provides a new way of like smashing that glass ceiling from the top down instead of from the bottom up, okay. But we're going to know in short order what the real priorities are here. But here we go. Historically, the Monroe Doctrine applied to Central and South America, but its geographic boundaries were never explicitly defined. The Trump administration, however, may be getting creative with borders, suggesting the doctrine could soon extend to Greenland. Greenland first surfaced as a talking point during Trump's campaign. This has reemerged over the weekend with Trump announcing that the U.S., quote, needs Greenland from a national security situation, and that we will, quote, deal with Greenland in about 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days, end quote. What exactly we'll be talking about when it comes to Greenland is not yet clear, but Denmark and the EU is taking this as a threat. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that, quote, if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War. Greenland's prime minister had some strong words. No more pressure, no more fantasies of annexation. We are open to dialogue, we are open to discussions, but this must happen through the proper channels and with respect for international law. What's this? The annexation? Like, what does that mean? We're open to dialogue and discussion about what? No more fantasies of annexation. Does that mean let's make it a reality? No more pressure. Let's just do this. Let's get into bed. I don't know. While an outright U.S. military takeover seems unlikely, diplomatic maneuvering is another matter. Trump's approach to statecraft has often been described as too much stick and not enough carrot. In the case of Greenland, we may see a bit more carrot. Still, with a population of only about 50,000 people, one might imagine that a thought experiment where for a low price of $50 billion, the U.S. offers every Greenlander $1 million in exchange for their country. That might prove more attractive. Wow, well, you know what you can do? You could take away all of the block grant money that is being given to essentially Somalia and venomous GOP and Democrat politicians who I'm sure are all reaping the benefits of this ill-gotten grant money that's being just washed through daycares and phony healthcare fronts and everything else like that. That would be great. You want to go buy another piece of land? I mean, just I don't know. Have Somalia buy it for you. That's what you should do. You should buy Greenland and give Somalia the bill for $50 billion. They've definitely made at least that. At least that. I don't know what else to say on all this. I just don't know what else to say. So yeah. Okay, let's see. A little bit more from you guys as hold on, let me make sure that everything's oh shit. Did I not wait again? Well, hold on a second. I might have made a mistake. Copy invite link. Did I give the link to Jason? Well, he should have this in his phone. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jason. Here you go. Here you go. Bermas. I just sent it to you right there. So sorry. You put this on speed dial. It never ends. Sorry. Watching the show currently, says Jason. So, shit. He's watching me wait for him, and he was never going to show up because of me. Anyway, that's what we have going on. Peppermint Patty says, let's do it. You got it. You're in for the cluster of silver dimes and whatever else I add to it tomorrow. Let's see here. Break the Chains Media has rated the stream over on Rumble. How nice of you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you on. I'm so sorry to have done this to our friend, Jason Bermas, who is a well-known researcher, broadcaster, documentary, filmmaker, and, of course, friend of Quite Frankly for his first appearance of 2026. Happy 250th anniversary of America, my friend.
Is today the day? Is the official 250th day?
No, it's just we're in the year, so it's going to be a whole lot of happy 250. But that's just the way it is leading up to July 2nd and all these years since 1776. It's just been a long time. But you know what? One good thing is that we might actually come out of this year with another state, Greenland. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know that that's actually going to be happening. Hold on one second. I just reset my computer, so this is the first time I'm using Zoom. That's why you were like blown out when I was first listening to you. The other thing is, do I look all like ridiculous cartoony as well?
No, I mean, you're generally a little bit more cartoony.
I mean, it's the sharpening filter on there. Like, I see you very sharp as well. I like. All right, hold on.
Right now, I'm still trying to figure out my lighting. I feel like I'm in a dim attic right here.
Lighting. All right, so you see me alone. Now check out what I'm looking at, because this is to me, this looks, I don't know, a little bizarre. So I'm seeing. Oh, it's not the same thing, but you see like how it's
what the hell?
What?
What the hell am I looking at right now? What was that?
You're looking at it go from the because I'd take a picture of it. As long as I look human to you, not a big deal. But it's very weird. I've got to fix Zoom. I hate technology and everything about it right now.
You look fine. You look fine. Whatever the hell just flashed on the screen where I looked like I was being drawn. I looked like Jimmy Durante. I don't know what the hell it was. I looked like one of those 1960s Christmas claymation characters. I don't know what that was, but you don't look like that right now on the finish.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Because that's what I'm seeing. Not exactly like that, but like in the first stages of it. So it's like this horrible. It's the late 90s sharpen filter on Photoshop that I'm watching in video time. I hate you, Zoom. I hate you, corporate America. I hate you, imperialism. Look, Frank, I heard at the very tail end. Yeah, and rightfully so. You started talking about, I want results on election fraud. We're not getting any results. And that's the whole thing. I've heard every excuse in the book, and the narrative coming out of the administration for this, and we'll get to Greenland in a minute, was what? Well, fentanyl, right? They were beating the drums against fentanyl. They were getting these drug runners. Hey, Frank, did you look at the charges yesterday?
Yes.
Any fentanyl charges?
No. Cocaine and machine guns.
Cocaine, machine guns, conspiracy to traffic in narcotics, right? Those are the main daddy pants. So, number one, even if you're for this, America, okay, or you're just diehard Trump, is this going to have a dent in fentanyl? Even now, some of the other policies, and I think rightfully so, will have some kind of a dent in fentanyl deaths in this country. We may be able to bring it down like 10%, gradually bring it lower and lower. But this is not going to have a significant impact at all on that. And let me tell you something else. Do you think it's going to have any significant impact on the nose candy coming into this country? I mean,
no.
It's a bad joke, man. So the drug thing's out now. Anybody that was paying attention and actually even watched the press conference, we did a watch along with the press conference. Trump was very, very. At least they're honest about it. He was outward about a few things. Number one, the oil, right? Make no mistake about it. Oil is a big part of it. Natural resources, minerals, geopolitical, strategically placed militarily, also a big deal in that region for trade, especially if you're going to start moving that kind of oil, and a lot of outward natural resources where you might even be able to set up some data centers. Now that they've taken this over, look for it to go the way of kind of Argentina. And you could see some of the digital stuff play out, beta test. But again, we'll see if it's really taken over. Right now, we have the extraction of a leader, and we don't really know what the aftermath is going to be. My guess is it's not going to be too many U.S. boots on the ground. There will be some. But the vast majority of the quote-unquote Western soldier activity is probably going to be privatized mercs. And that's because, again, Trump was very outward that the people paying for this restructuring of the oil are going to be the companies that were basically worked out via nationalization. Because he, again, said that, we built this. And, in a roundabout fashion, of course, these oil companies did build this before they were run out. And that was nationalized. So, I mean, it's outward fascism. And he didn't even say they were going to have a democratic election. He was very, very outward that they're installing a new leader. And that leader is going to be sympathetic to the United States as we run it, so this doesn't happen again. People can be for this, and you can say that Maduro is a dictator, but I don't know what you call another installed leader other than a dictator. And if we're going to point to Maduro being illegitimate, right, and he didn't really win those elections, very well may be true. I'm no expert. I've always said that. I said the guy looks corrupt to me, but there's a lot of corruption in politics, so who knows? Didn't we have a stolen election in this country? Because of that, would we allow another country to come in and even take Joe Biden down? I mean, that may be a fantasy of maybe the QAnon sense folks, right?
Well, there's a lot about this story, Jason. Then I paid very little attention when it was just all of the drug boat headlines. I just figured, I don't know what the hell this is leading up to. I don't know what the hell the real issue is. Obviously, there's no issue to blow these things out of the water if they are actually landing on American beaches, or if they're in, they leave international waters and they're now in our space. Then yeah, go ahead and lethal force. I'm fine with it. I wish that we had more active denial deterrent at the southern border, just with people who are crossing without drugs, stuffed up their asses. So that there's that. The only thing about this that seemed redeeming to me, because I'm not, people always say, there's plenty of people out there who say, listen, you don't know what the plan is. You're not privy to all of the plans and where this is all going to lead. But you know what? I mean, is it going to lead eventually to the power and the authority that is being used right now and flexed right now diminished? Are we reconstituting a world, and kind of is everything going to be safer for Americans and freer economically? And then all of the power that was gained to pull off operations like this, is that going to be diminished and left behind? And are we going to finally live as intended by our founders 250 years later? Or, I mean, it just, that's why the only thing that sounded attractive to me was thinking about 2020, thinking about people like Sidney Powell saying that they were going to release the Kraken, and they found so many things about bigger elements. Elections are stolen on the ground here locally. In the states have all the power they need in the world to clean up America's elections. But what we also know, there has to be bigger, overarching technological, international ways that elections around the world are maintained so that this super state that is being managed by in Brussels and elsewhere is able to maintain that their power is not checked by organic, nationalist movements or anything like that. So I'm interested in that, but I don't know. Everything else just seems like talking points for, like you were saying, resources and things that really don't benefit us that much.
Listen, here's the other thing that I ask people. Okay, the oil. Do you think that you're getting cheaper gas because of this in the next 6 months? Absolutely not. Absolutely. First of all, gas should already be cheap. You were just talking about how many oil reserves there are untapped around the world. There are many that have already been opened up and basically aren't pumping what Trump and others would want them to. This is a real resource that's going to be utilized for a very long time. And do you think your power bill is going to go down because of this? No, they're going for the AI, bro. People have talked about the possibility of silver there as well. You've seen silver shoot through the roof. I don't know that if you've been keeping up on the price of RAM, but we're being worked out. A lot of resources that we need, not only technologically on the side of RAM production, which is in literally everything, folks, from your Magic Box to your video game system that went up this year after being out for 5 years. Again, a history's first, to what's in your PC, to the water we drink. Okay? The water we drink in the next decade is going to become a very, very big discussion because these AI data centers are going to be using it. So this is it, man. This is the full spectrum dominance that the neocon agenda wrote about in their white papers, and this is another branch of it geographically. Venezuela has always, since you and I were kids, been under the eye of globalism, and especially Western globalism. It was one of the few nations that didn't have the global banking system that most of us adhere to. You can bet that's going to change, but it's not going to change in the way that we think. It's going to be the next step as a beta test. Okay? There's a lot of things about this I really hate. I think it sets a bad precedent because what's going to stop? A lot of people like to think that the United States has some kind of moral justification in this realm, but the truth of the matter is now, who says that China can't say there's a stolen election in Taiwan and do the same exact thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. Well, I will say one thing. Gas about a week ago dropped precipitously over here. We lost about 45 cents off a gallon over here. We finally, just about 5 days ago or so, we dipped under $3. We were hovering around 350, 355. We were at 299 about 5 days ago. A couple of days ago, my wife just told me, hey, well, we're down to 290, 295. Today it dropped down to 289. So hey, listen, I don't. That was all before the raid there too. So I'm.
Well, that's the other thing. It's always been artificially manipulated one way or the other. They have never produced oil at a clip where it was such an abundance that it would drop below a certain level. There's been market manipulation. There was even that odd time period early on during COVID 1984 where a barrel of oil wasn't worth anything. I don't know if people remember that, but it was literally down to quote unquote zero at the market. Obviously, that can't be real either. Shows you how manipulated the energy markets are, right? And the other thing is, you and I and the rest of the world has been taught since birth that this is a finite resource, right? And that, we have to watch it because it's going to go away, and that's why we need to transition. And then they've even, added of what a pollutant it is. Now, don't get me wrong. Oil itself is in a lot of things, Frank. It's not just our gasoline. It's not just our heating. I mean, it's literally in the vast majority of products, like this cell phone case, DVDs, Blu-ray, you name it, CDs. It's in a ton of different. It's a petrochemical that's in a ton of stuff. It's abundant, but with things that you can, especially things that not only are financially powerful, but then in turn give you power over people. Again, they're artificially manipulated again and again, and this market has been part of that. But at the same time, those that control those markets have great power. In essence, you look at the Saudi Arabian kingdom and what they've been able to achieve in the Middle East, where so many other nations have not, and it's because they have that abundant natural resource that is going nowhere, and they've played ball with the military industrial complex and many of these agendas and plans. So essentially, again, Trump was very outward about this. They want to create a situation in Venezuela where it's open for energy business, but also sympathetic to the United States and part of that power structure. So we'll see what happens. To the one credit, and I'm certainly not trying to encourage this, but it does give a talking point to those that are in favor of this, right? They were able to actually war game this. They obviously had people on the inside that they bought off. Don't get me wrong, it was violent on the other end. People absolutely died on the other end, but no U.S. soldiers died. They were in, they were out. As far as I know, we do not have a large troop presence anywhere on the ground in that area. So those are all positive things, but not necessarily positive in the long run, and certainly not positive when you talk about the people that are really going to be in charge of these resources at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, and this is where I have my principles, and then I just also, there are days and times where I just understand how things are. And I totally relate to a government that would want to be able to make sure that there are only, especially in your neck of the woods, that you are surrounded by friendlies and that you are surrounded by people that you can call partners and not adversaries or competitors, or you have people on the other side of the planet who are coming in and making all their deal. And perhaps all the deals are on the same level, that corporatist kind of a John Perkins way of wheeling and dealing and roping people in. So I understand it. I understand why you would want to make sure that this is how you have the Western Hemisphere on lock. I understand it. So I have an open mind to things, because obviously whatever I see over here, whatever personal opinions I have are not even secondary. They're just my personal opinions, and we're going to observe this and coast into the future. And you know what? Who knows? Who knows how objectively prosperous it's going to make people? Because, like you said, there are a lot of things lurking around the corner. Where is AI going to take us next? And how do we finally wind down these wars that we thought that in places like Ukraine that would have been, the can would have been kicked about 10 months ago, but obviously there's another plan there. So how does that all get wrapped up? I'm curious to see it. I feel like, this is more interesting to watch than anything that Netflix has released lately. And that's just the mindset I have to go into the new year bringing with me, because I have no power in changing it. Here's something for you though, too. This was 4 minutes ago. Breaking 911 said that, Secretary Rubio tells lawmakers that recent Trump threats against Greenland did not signal an imminent invasion, and that the goal is to buy the island from Denmark. That is from the Wall Street Journal.
Well, let me say this. All right. Trump likes to use gangster language. Now, Frank, one of the things I said again and again and again before they elected him the first time, that he was three things. He was an actor, he was a womanizer, and he was a gangster. Again, if you watch the press conference, he talked about how they were thinking about a second wave in Venezuela and might not be done. Now, this is long after they've got Maduro. It is before they've charged him. But he essentially said, I don't think we'll have to do it. Wouldn't want to have to do it. But if we did it, it would actually be more forceful than the first wave. That's a gangster thing. We don't want to do it. We just did it, but we'll do it again more violently.
I've been loving it, to be honest. I've been having such a fun time with the press conferences. I've been loving it. I love the way he's berating the media. Those are the things that I will not trade for anything. I've been having a blast when it comes to this stuff.
Again, it's dark humor to me at this point.
Yes.
Because Frank, like you said, we're now, here it is, man. It's January 6th. Today is the day, bro. Like, we're a year deep. We're 1 year deep in this administration. We had to fight tooth and nail to get what we've got on Epstein, right? There's way more to come. They've now said not 1.2 million documents, but 5.7 million pages of documents. And remember, if you were looking through those binders, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of repetition, but those binders, in large part, many of them were basically, they had burned CDs. Remember the discs that we were talking about? So things have been revealed with this document dump. And then on those burned CDs, they actually printed out just miniatures so they could go into the CD and then pluck the ones that they wanted out later if they wanted to print them or send them to people. And they had binders of those. And some of those binders are literally completely blacked out. Okay. Other of those binders reveal a relationship with people like Walter Cronkite. I mean, those Epstein files are the real deal, but I don't know if I've been on since the release of the New York Times article that points further to the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was absolutely involved with Iran-Contra. Have we discussed that?
No.
So basically the week of the first big release because of the Massey bill, there's this New York Times article on Jeffrey Epstein coming up. I think it's like 4 or 5 of the senior reporters that did this piece. Now, I read it top to bottom, and if you're honest with yourself and you read it top to bottom, it's going to take you about an hour. You need to read it, okay? First and foremost, it shows that he was actually mentored by a guy that we knew that he knew on the peripheral, and that Stephen Hoffenberg, who was his partner at Towers and Financial, said introduced him to Epstein. That was Douglas Lease. And this guy was in the article. Okay, first of all, the article tries to poo-poo the idea that Epstein was an intelligence asset, right? They said wild conspiracy theories, he just conned everybody and was just so charming. But then you see this relationship with Lease, who they say mentored him and took him with him on business deals, and he was an arms dealer and defense contractor. If you didn't know, this guy was neck deep in what? Iran-Contra. Now, I know I'm pretty sure you've had Johnny Vedmore on the program, and probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago, Vedmore did this 2-part series on Stanley Pottinger and his role with Jeffrey Epstein. And Pottinger would end up being a lawyer for a bunch of the victims. Essentially, Vedmore was the first person to point out that they had a relationship before that, and they shared an office together. Now, that's all he could prove, but obviously he suspected more. And Bradley Edwards, who actually worked with Pottinger with these women, actually at one point asked him if he was Central Intelligence Agency. Stanley Pottinger was, again, neck deep in Iran-Contra. Okay? Now, it's now revealed in this New York Times article that not only did they share an office together, they were in business together. All right? And then you get into BCCI Banking, which is the same banking network that helped fund bin Laden, the Mujahideen back in the day. This is the Black Ops network, and that's integrated with Epstein. Tail end of the article, if those weren't big enough revelations, they show that David Rockefeller himself had documentation of meeting Jeffrey Epstein, and they talk about that relationship. and his relationship to the Trilateral Commission. So showing the extensions into modern day globalism via this network. That's why Epstein is so important. It goes just beyond his abuse of young girls and women, which he did plenty. It goes beyond even the honeypots. It shows how these networks of drugs, women, girls,
weapons,
boys, all of it works. And it's a pretty disgusting picture when you get the full-blown look and zoom out of it.
Well, I'm so glad that we've been able to have so many talks about that there too, because it's added a lot of layers to it all. You think about how the average person who really looks into anything like that, they really just have the Netflix version of the story told, which is, like you just said, was a charismatic guy who had a lot of money, and therefore that somehow carved him out a safety lane to live this type of a life and have nobody want to touch him out of one fear or another. Makes absolutely no sense that he wasn't plugged into something bigger and served higher masters and wore a lot of hats, not just somebody that procures blackmail in lofty parties in the Caribbean somewhere. So we've gotten a lot of that context from you. In fact, we haven't done one thing that we haven't done together. Maybe we can do it at some point to get what you have collected on this in particular was Zorro Ranch and the MIT connection. You and I, we've talked a lot about Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. We've connected a lot of dots together and gotten your work on the table. But I don't think that we went out to Zorro Ranch ever to talk about the genetic tinkering aspect of things. Bill Gates, MIT, Bill Gates, chief science officer, who was actually the backup executor to Epstein's estate. That they, very quickly had to say, oh, no, that must have just been an aberration or something like that. Well, we have no connection to him. He's the executor of his state. What was his name? Bruno something? I forget.
All you know is you said MIT, and not only do we have more extensive relationships with Noam Chomsky, but Chomsky seems to be at the same places as Steve Bannon is. And in these documents, the pictures of Epstein and Bannon are actually framed and put at a couple of his residences. However, you mentioned one residence in particular, Zorro Ranch, which was never investigated. Frank, I got to jump. I got a heart out. I got another show to do. For those that want to check out my work, please do. We're back on YouTube. We're rocking and rolling. And Frank, I actually interviewed the man, the myth, the legend, David Icke, for almost 2 hours today.
Wow.
So that's out there. Yes.
I'm gonna have to go check it out, and I hope everybody hangs out with you on the Jason Bermas channel there.
If you type in Jason Bermas, and I'm not the first thing that comes up, you know how terrible Google is, so you'll hunt me out. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, thank you for making a drop in tonight. I know it was last minute, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great.
All right, be well. Okay, guys and gals, there you go. Jason is kicking on down the trail here, and now it is the last 15 minutes, and I'm leaving it to you. First of all, please leave a like, comment, share. We're coming up on the last bit here. I would love for you to get lively in the chat room. Send some super chats over. Get yourself into the running. If you leave more than one, you have more than one chance. The likelihood of you getting this cluster of 3 beautiful Mercury Head dimes, a shark survival kit. I'm going to put one of my band's 2017 albums in there. There's only like 4 or 5 left, and God knows what else. We'll talk about giving that away maybe tomorrow. But here I am. I've got. Let's see here. Here's another thing that was tweeted out. Well, it's not tweet. It's all on Truth, I think. Earlier on this after, or just maybe a couple hours ago, Donald Trump, I'm pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Is that to replenish what the Biden administration had sold off? Wow. 6 days in. I know. We're going to say soon, like, wow, 36 days in. Look what else is happening. Hey, I bring on Jason Bermas for a very specific reason. Because I know that he is probably not going to be all as hopeful and pie in the sky about what this means. I have hopes for objective good that's going to be done, and I also hope that every move that is made is somehow going to shock us all with some kind of a finale episode one day where everybody gets perp walked, and I'm living in that fantasy. I'm in that fantasy world with you guys. You know, life goes on. We're doing our work and all this is happening around us. But I want to bring on as many people with different opinions on what's happening as possible. You guys are I draw from that pool of the audience as well. So call in. What do you think about what Jason said? Anything that he said that vibes with you? Anything that you want to push back on? We got 10 minutes left. We have enough for quick, bite-sized calls. Call in and leave an opinion so everybody that's watching afterwards can hear your lovely voice. Eli P. says, I loved the show, Frank. Well, I'm happy to have you. You guys have been wonderful in supporting the show through your comments and your likes and your shares and the hype. And it's been great as far as seeing viewership flood back, and the averages are going up, and there's more people that are watching things that have been posted in short and medium format, and let's see where we are by Christmas 2026. You know, just work hard. Let's see right now, $3 billion. What does that mean? 3 billion. What does hell? Nicolas Maduro likely to be criminally charged in Miami-Dade on Florida state-level charges, home to the vast Venezuelan population. In symbolic. Okay. So just let me know when we get around to elections. Let's go over to Discord now to take in a call from Tefros. Tefros, you there?
Yeah. Hey, Frank, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the guy who's on his deathbed. Yeah, I think that, I think he could be welcomed into Christ's heart. I was born and raised Catholic. I'm not necessarily a practicing Catholic these days, but I still pray to God and I still have faith in Christ. And I think that, it really comes down to, faith without works is dead, right? Like if he lived a good life and was oriented around service to others, he could definitely be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven. So that's just my take on it. I don't, it's interesting because, to be like the quote unquote devout Christian or Catholic, you have to confess that Jesus is your Lord and Savior. And that I think is not just the only requirement, in my opinion. I think you have to live a good life and be good to people, right? So that's my take on it.
Well, I'm right there with you when it comes to works. I mean, that's just common sense. You have to back thought and feeling with action. That's just how it is with everything in life in general. Whether we're talking spiritually or even on a secular level, just you want to talk about attraction. I mean, you have a thought, you have a goal, you have just something that you want to achieve or experience. I mean, you have to be able to put action behind that, and I think that's a great point to be made. And thank you for the call, Tefros. The first Discord call of the year. Here's another one from Rev. What's going on, Rev? Going once, Rev. Going twice. 3 times. It's muted. It's unmuted. He's struggling in there. I'll drop him back in. I'll get to him in a little bit. 817, you're on the air again. Hello?
We were talking spiritually.
Okay. finishing strong. We're finishing strong, everybody. We're finishing strong. 914-200-0269. Talked a little bit about Greenland. We talked a little bit about NATO versus NATO. Talked a lot about Scott Adams, and I think that's where we're going to end right now. It's 8:53. Thank you for participating tonight. I will see you tomorrow night. We're going to have Lindsay Sharman calling into the show, so I'm sure we're going to be getting into some interesting fields. You want to talk about spirituality? You want to talk about the outer limits? I think we should be able to do some really good stuff. She's a former school teacher who really woke up to what the hell is being done to kids in the classroom and how it's really just, psychopathy factories. And also Lindsay is a yearly attendee and co-host for our August book clubs. She was there for three books now I did with Lindsay Williams. I've been thinking about the Energy Non-Crisis. Lindsay Williams is the one that read that. Lindsay Sharman. Lindsay Sharman will be on with us tomorrow. We'll reminisce about book club, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. With that being said, we are not done. We're going to be talking until the lights go out at 9:30. It's going to be over on the flip side, and you can reach the flip side. There's no paywall, nothing like that. You just click the link that I got for you in the chat room right now. Come to the flip side, putting it into Rumble, putting it into YouTube and DLive and Twitch, wherever the hell you are. Come find us. It'll be great to hang out with you. We're letting our hair down. I'll be talking to general chat. We'll watch some reels. We'll have a good time. It is even more uncensored than we are right here. And that's it. Thank you so much for Tuesday night. It's been a pleasure. And until tomorrow, thank you.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly filled before a live studio audience. And now our super chatters, starting with Eli P, Peppermint Patty, Barracuda, Stowstube, Jay Britz, and so many more on Pill that we're going to be talking to one-on-one right now. Thank you to everybody. Oh man, Stowstube just dropped an EMP. What the hell's happening over there? All right, get to the flip side. I'm dropping the link again.